there's no question. I said this about South Carolina Vandy last week. Vandy, there's no question who had been the better team to date heading into that game. Same thing. There's no question who's been the better team heading into Mizzou, South Carolina this year.
It's Mizzou That's Who here on KC Sports Network. Tucker Franklin hanging out with Maggie Johnson after the Missouri Tigers take care of business against the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. 52-10, moved to 3-0 on the year. Maggie, you were there. You were at the incredibly hot, scorching game that they ended up moving up. Well, you didn't talk about that because it was after our podcast, so they moved the time up of the game. How much do you think that actually helped?
For fans, not any at all.
Right.
I mean, you can tell by the photos. I have a photo of it at the beginning of the game in the first quarter. It's decently full. Okay, it's decently full. By the end of halftime, early in the third quarter, it wasn't. But I don't blame anybody. That's the hottest game I've ever been to. And people can say, "Oh, that's so weak. Spend more time outside," which some people have said to me. I'm like, I spent a lot of time outside, and I think maybe the meadow bleachers mixed with not a single smidge of breeze. It was really, really hot. And there was you just couldn't get any relief at all. I think Drink said in his press conference that the turf temperature was 176 degrees at the end of the game. 176 degrees.
That's crazy. And I know that turf is always hotter because of the rubber pellets and everything, and that was a big point. That was the reason that they moved it up.
Yeah,
is because because just it baking in the sun all day and then kicking the game off at 3 would make the turf temperature 170 degrees apparently at kickoff, basically. Because that game was supposed to, I believe, kick at 3, right? And that game was a pretty quick game. I mean, I think it ended about 3 hours, or no, it was about. I'll have to go back and look, but I think it was a fairly quick game because both teams in the second half were like, "Let's get out of here, run the ball."
Yeah, I wish we would have went to 10-minute quarters like Mississippi State did and things like that. And they scored 10 more points than us, so they didn't agree to that. And I know Louisiana, they're from Louisiana, they're used to the heat too, right. But I know for sure that it was hot for every single person in Memorial Stadium on Saturday.
Oh, it was. 100%. That was one of those games where I was thankful to be watching it at home. Thankful to be watching that one at home. Obviously, as Missouri does take care of business. I'm looking this up real quick because I want to see actually how long that game was. First kick was at 1:02 Eastern, so 12:02 Central. Mm-hmm. Game got done at 3:10, so it was about just over 2 hours. Actually, of right? Is that how that works?
That's 3 hours.
Unless
it's Eastern.
Sorry,
time.
No.
3 o'clock is Eastern.
No, what I did is I changed the end time to Central Time, but I didn't, in my head, change the start time. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, 3 hours, which is usually how long a football game, an NFL game lasts. College games obviously last a lot longer than NFL games. But yeah, Mizzou took care of business. That's what you want to see there. Just a couple of notes. I thought this was interesting. Eli Drinkwitz moved into 5th place alone on the all-time wins list in program history with his 41st victory, beating the Raging Cajuns. Mizzou obviously is 24-5 over its last 29 games, equaling the second most wins over a 29-game span in program history.
Saturday could tie it. Tie it. Next week UMass could win it if we can beat South Carolina.
That's true. Shout out
UMass. And that's that 13, 14, 15 team that has that.
Yep. First meeting between Louisiana and Missouri. We talked about that. Home winning streak is 13 games. 5th best streak in the nation, tied with Boise State. Did you know that?
I actually didn't. I knew we were up there high. I didn't know we were tied with Boise State, which is good for Boise State. They've obviously,
Boise State.
They've been a great G5 program for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. They've been a really solid G5 program. So no surprise. I'm sure the other ones are big dogs, probably like a Penn State, Oregon. I'm not even positive.
Yeah, I don't have that list. I haven't published the stats for this one yet, but this is just post game stats. Usually in the book that they put out, shout out the Missouri Sports Information Department for putting out the media book and everything. you guys can see this too. Like, you just go to the website and go to the media hub, and you can find all of this. You just got to know where to look. Usually they have like those full lists of like everything else. These are just like blurbs of like where they rank. But I would be very curious to see, especially the graphic that they put out about Missouri's record in the last 29 games, the last 3 years, right? And like where they ranked with the other top programs. I'll be curious to see a list like that for these other stats.
Yeah. I mean, and the teams that they've lost to in those games, and obviously, like we were talking about home winning streaks and things like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're losing to big dogs. They're losing to other teams that are high up, likely high up on those lists. South Carolina's obviously not, because they just lost at home to Vandy by 30. But it's not like Mizzou's lost to. They've won the games they're supposed to win. Let's say that they've won the games they're mainly supposed to win.
And they have outperformed how they've won those games too this season, and so that's great. We talk a little bit with Bill Connelly, today's guest on the Mizzou That's Who podcast, ESPN, Mizzou guy. So, what do you know? He does know. He does know what he's talking about. This is also an interesting streak. Missouri has won 22 straight games that are non-SEC games at home. So 22 straight non-conference winning streak when it comes to home games. And obviously those non-conference games aren't necessarily like juggernauts, but that includes like K-State, KU, and other Boston College.
Yeah. We've had some, I mean, it's hard for me to go back and look at, I guess you typically have 4 non-cons. How many did you say we've won in a row?
22. So that's a
lot of seasons.
That is.
It's a lot of seasons. I mean, I know there was a while, I can't remember the exact year. I know it was early in the SEC. We were playing Indiana, so that's probably out. But I know we played UCF at some point. We had Arizona State at some point. So we've had those teams, thrown in there too. It's not all just Central Arkansas.
Right. I'm just quickly scanning of what they had South Dakota, Louisiana Tech, Abilene Christian.
Okay, yeah, maybe these are juggernauts. Okay, Tucker, like, let's not disrespect.
Maybe there has been Southeast Missouri. They had Central Michigan, North Texas. I forgot they played North Texas. This was in 2021. Huh? How about that?
Everything kind of before 2023 in terms of the non-conference schedule just kind of is a blur to me right now. Like, I could answer almost everything about 2023, 2024 right now, but those are kind of a blur.
Yeah, I don't think they've lost. I don't think they've lost a non-conf. Well, that's not true. They haven't lost a home non-conference game since Eli Drinkwitz started.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously lost to K-State on the road.
Yeah,
but
here's the thing, and people. Sometimes other fans of other teams get all up in arms about this, but that the beginning of your season, you're figuring things out. Like, I get that I love playing Kansas. I think that that's great. It's a rivalry game. I understand people wanting to play Notre Dame and things like that, but there's no problem with scheduling a couple of cupcakes early on the season. You watched freaking Bill Snyder do it. Yeah. Bill Snyder, there were seasons he was playing 2 FCS teams in his non-con, and they were winning 10 games every season. So, I mean, I prefer the SEC games. I prefer playing teams like Kansas, but you've got to have a couple of these Louisianas and Middle Tennessees and things like that to just figure out who your program is, what's working, what doesn't, and then get into that SEC play, which we're at this week.
We are. And look, Missouri has the 30th. They got their 30th win in home games since 2020. That ties Georgia for second in the SEC for home wins. So Faroe has obviously been a home field advantage for Missouri as of late. And thank you, K-State fans. They did it again. Missouri is sold out for the South Carolina game. Blackout, I believe, is what they're doing.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a whiteout. The administration's been great. The AD has been great. They have been listening to Mizzou fans like so far all season, changing things up when it's been requested, things like that. It's supposed to be a whiteout, changed it to a blackout. It's not going to be as hot on Saturday, which is great because
that's good.
I wore black on Saturday and mistakes were made. Yeah, mistakes were made. It'll be
I'm
much
looking
better
up.
Saturday.
I know. Yeah, I know that in Kansas City, I think it's supposed to be fairly cooler, and it's like I think we're supposed to get a decent amount of rain in Kansas City here. But in Columbia, it looks like on Saturday, a quick little Google search is telling me 83, a high of 83, and so it should be around kickoff about 82 degrees. Get dipping down and getting cooler. So like that,
it'll be nice once that sun goes down. A nice 6 p.m. night game. We went there last year I guess last year I think it was a 3:30 game for them. It just ended. And it was night, so it's kind of cool to get us our first SEC game, especially with the new lights and things like that. I think I think it's going to be an environment. I think it's going to be quite a good environment.
I'm excited for it. No, I think that'll be good. It'll be a good game. I'm excited for this, and the expectations have kind of changed for this game as well. As Maggie, as we'll talk about with Bill Connelly here in a little bit, but this was a game that went to a coin flip at the beginning of the year to now Missouri should win this football game if we anticipate this team to be as good as what we've seen. This is a game that has a lot of importance. Obviously, the first game of the conference schedule is going to be important just to start your conference season on the right foot. But a team like South Carolina had a lot of expectations, not necessarily meeting those expectations. And a team like Missouri, roles have kind of flipped in this game, and it happened kind of quickly.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot of how Mizzou can do whatever they want, and then they're still they don't get the benefit of the doubt. I think that South Carolina got the benefit of the doubt even after losing a lot, like losing Rocket Sanders, losing offensive line, losing defensive linemen. I like Mizzou in this game as of right now. I don't know if Sellers is going to play. Nobody knows. We're not going to know. I mean, we're just not. Yeah. You can ask the question as many times as you want, but we're not going to know until probably right before the game starts.
Yeah.
I still like Missouri based on how South Carolina's been playing with him or without him. I think that the score, could change. But the way Missouri's been playing, they're kind of out-talenting South Carolina all over the field.
Yeah, they are. Missouri has a good roster. And I was texting with, friend of the program, Matt Miller, a little bit during the game, and we were talking about how good Josiah Trotter's been, how good these wide receivers have been. And look, here's the thing. I know Joshua Manning hasn't popped off the stat sheet, but he's doing some things that NFL teams will love. He is doing things off the ball that you got to go back and watch because his run blocking is incredible. And that's great for a team like Missouri who wants to run the football. They're going to be they're going to turn in, they've kind of turned into a run first team. I know that they have never been a high flying air raid, Heupel's offense, right? I know it's been a minute since Josh Heupel's been in Columbia, but they didn't have that offense really ever. They've always had really good running backs and they've always kind of been built on running the football. They got two damn good backs now. I mean, I just saw this come up from
3.
Yeah, 3. I mean, that's a great point.
I bet Marquise Davis also ran for over 100 yards.
They've had 3 different running backs get 100 yards in this season. And Marquise Davis, I mean, he did get a hell of a workload in that second half of that game. I think he got 20 carries and Ahmad Hardy got 22 carries. So, just to kind of show you, also Ahmad Hardy running for 250 yards in 2.5 in a drive is insane. He's second right now in FBS in total rushing yards, by the way.
Leads the SEC, leads Power 5. But have you seen the stat about how they have 514 yards after contact? So that averages out to be 171 per game. Last season they had 997 all season.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean they're 400 yards short of that. We're only 3 games in. I mean, that's what's huge. And I remember even after the Kansas game, one of the bigger Kansas accounts was like, I would like to see how many yards Ahmad Hardy had yards after contact. And it was just an insane number. He just runs no one can stop him. And they, a lot of times they can't.
Right. And that's impressive. He can make a 0-yard run for 3 yards, which is really impressive. Ahmad Hardy does win the Doak Walker Player of the Week. I don't think anyone should be surprised by that with a 22-yard, 3-touchdown, or 22-carry, 3-touchdown, 250-yard performance. That is That is quite a day. You'll take that all the time. But look, I think we get into it a whole lot more with Bill Connelly. You guys got to hear what he's got to say. The SP Plus, his metric, really does love the Tigers. I mean, that's a very big metric, and ESPN uses it a lot on all of their stuff. And he is a self-proclaimed. I looked at his Twitter bio, Maggie. He's a self-proclaimed professional nerd, is what he has in his Twitter bio, and
I love it.
it's great. It's great. Writers,
Well,
I
you
think he's
trust with analytics, like
phenomenal. We have to get pro nerds on the podcast, right? If we're gonna get nerds, we got to get pro nerds on the podcast. We can't get any amateurs around here.
Yeah.
You guys,
I like the self-proclaimed. Even though Drink is now self-proclaiming himself a nerd, which I appreciate after years of being called it. So you may as well get ahead of the curve.
Taking it
and
back.
call yourself one.
Yeah, he's taking it back. Well, I had to mention that he put professional nerd in his bio, and I didn't want you guys to think I was calling him a professional nerd, so I had to say he was a self-proclaimed professional nerd. He's also written 3 books as well. I didn't know that about Bill until he's written 3 books. It's pretty impressive.
A newer one that's out. He was talking with Bill Barnwell on one of his podcasts. I'm not sure when that podcast came out, but yeah, check him out.
Yeah, go give him a follow at ESPN_Bill C on the Twitter. Here is our conversation with him. But first, I got to tell you guys about our friends at GEHA, and they're calling all Chiefs fans. If you're in Kansas City, you could be on the field at the 50 inside GEHA field for the official coin toss at a Chiefs home game this season. Visit Chiefs.com/GEHA now. Enter to win a chance to be on the field for a once-in-a-lifetime view of the pre-game coin toss. Plus, you can score other exclusive prizes. Enter for a chance to win at Chiefs.com/GEHA. GEHA is the proud partner of the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with ESPN's Bill Connelly right after this.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
What's up, guys? I'm BJ Kissel, founder and CEO of KC Sports Network, and I'm here to talk to Kansas City businesses. If you rely on technology, you need an IT support team that's not just another vendor, but a true IT partner. That's why I want to introduce you to my friend and neighbor, KJ Miller. He is a VCIO at ThrottleNet, the Midwest's highest rated and most reviewed IT support company. They've been in business for more than 25 years, helping companies stay secure, productive, and ahead of the curve. They aren't just IT support, but they provide data security, IT strategy, and cloud software services. They do it all, and their reviews show they do it better than anyone else. So if you want to hear about how ThrottleNet can help your local business, join the conversation with myself, KJ Miller from ThrottleNet, and our resident genius from KC Sports Network when it comes to IT, at least as he's affectionately known by us, Mr. Craig Stout. Click the link in the description to hear how ThrottleNet can help you.
Bill, thanks for joining us here on the Mizzou That's Who podcast. Glad you could be a part of us and talk about a pretty big game, the first SEC game in Columbia this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Super excited. We've obviously never met. You probably never even heard of our podcast or anything like that. But no, we like to bring on people every week that our fans are going to like, and we really think that they're going to enjoy you. So, first off, I kind of want to ask you a personal question, even not so much about the game coming up, but I kind of want to ask you about just college football as a whole and the Missouri program as a whole. They've gone 24-5 over the past 3 years. Why do you think? I know I listened to a podcast you did with Bill Barnwell, and you use the words like haves and have-nots. Why do you think it's so hard to kind of change your stripes in this college football landscape and get that kind of respect that Missouri has I feel like gotten, like they've gotten the disrespect, but they've kind of worked their way up to where they should be gaining respect. But why do you think it's so hard to get there?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing with college football is that mostly the same teams that win now were winning 50 years ago or winning 75 years ago. And they got kind of a head start when it comes to investing heavily in the sport, or, they're just enormous land grant universities that have more money than everybody else. So that's always been, we always have it pretty easy with college football, because if you just assume that the teams that have always been good will continue to be good, you're going to be right most of the time. So it was kind of interesting to see, you'll see these kind of SEC bias things with, teams getting too much benefit of the doubt and whatnot. But obviously that hasn't really applied to Missouri, but you do it more than 2 years. Obviously, there was kind of a downward period there for Mizzou before 24 or 23. And, you do it for more years, then you'll slowly get more benefit of the doubt. But it was kind of, yeah, it's kind of, you have a team that wins 21 games in 2 years and then goes unranked to start the season. That's obviously, it's hard to claim SEC bias if it doesn't apply to all teams, at least.
I think that's a really good point. And even talking about this team specifically, too, you bring it up unranked coming into the year, a team that, expectations for Missouri, I don't think, at least nationally and maybe even locally, weren't as high as they probably are right now. And that might be the opposite case for South Carolina. But, Bill, I want your thoughts on just how this Missouri team has looked so far this season. I know they haven't played 3 juggernauts, right? But they've played a little bit of a lighter schedule than a lot of these other teams. But how are your thoughts on this team?
I mean, they have exceeded expectations and projections in every single game. Like that's what I try to do. I hate when we kind of do the ain't played nobody thing and we basically look, right. Just because, you can only play, what's the best way to put it? If like we only say that certain teams can be at the top of a resume rankings based on who they played or which conference they belong to or whatever. And I kind of hate that. I've always just thought that we can look at every single game you play and determine something about how good your team is. And very few teams have exceeded projections. Now, Missouri, in my SP Plus projections, they started the year 20th. So, if I had a preseason vote, they'd have been in there and that's fine. But they're up to 13 they're up to 11th now. And in terms of who's exceeded just game to game, only a few teams have really overachieved their projections more. So yeah, and that includes a Kansas game where you had a fumble return touchdown early, where you had Kansas recovering a fumble and going on to score one of their own fumbles and going on to score a touchdown afterwards. So you had some bad luck early on and you still ended up exceeding projections. Like they've passed their tests, obviously, through 3 games. It's just, with this schedule, you just, you have to keep passing those tests. If you beat South Carolina, you start 5-0. Most of the teams on the back half of the schedule have passed their tests this year too. So it's only going to get trickier.
Talking about the schedule a little bit and like talking about this South Carolina game, how important do you think that this game is with them being, I mean, obviously they've had some issues. They dropped out of the rankings. We all know that. But how important do you think that this game is for Mizzou to get where they want to be by the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, assuming we're talking about, trying to get to 10-2 or so and position yourself for playoff. I mean, when you've got Alabama, when you've got road trips to Auburn and Oklahoma, who looks good, Arkansas is always dangerous. Vanderbilt skipped right over that one. And then, of course, A&M at home as well. Like, obviously, just beating beatable teams is very important right now. And South Carolina, it kind of drove me crazy. I thought they were a little more hyped than they should be. Shane Beamer does a pretty good job of finishing strong and building hype for the next season, and then starting pretty poorly in September and doing it all over again. So you like to play South Carolina early, but they're still just a really dangerous team in that even last year when they were at their best, they weren't played to like play for play dynamite. They just had these, a couple times a game, they have these spectacular feats of athleticism from a Sellers or a Dylan Stewart or a Nick Harbor that it kind of erased a lot of those problems. And we saw that against Virginia Tech in the season opener. They weren't very good for most of the game. Then they get a long touchdown that puts the game away, get a punt return, obviously. Swain's pretty incredible in that regard. So they still have those athletes and they can still just kind of pop up at random times. But against Vanderbilt last week, a very just kind of grounded out, efficient Vanderbilt team. Obviously, Vandy played well enough and kept playing and well and got the Sellers injury and was able to put that game away easily. So Missouri's going to win more plays than it loses in this coming game. But South Carolina's explosiveness remains, and that makes them a very dangerous team.
I saw you tweeted out your SP Plus projections for this week and the picks out there on Twitter at ESPN_Bill C. You guys can go find that there as well with the link to the Google sheet. You have Missouri 32 to South Carolina 18. I'm curious, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, how much has that changed since the beginning of the year? Because coming into this game, it feels like when we were looking at the schedule, Maggie and I are doing game previews, this one game felt like a coin flip, and now it seems firmly into a game. You look at all of the metrics that you can find, even if you go over to sports betting numbers, it seems like this game is firmly in Missouri's camp of you should win this football game.
Yeah, South Carolina's rating fell in SP Plus at least by 8 points this week, which is really hard to do. I mean, they got obviously the Sellers injury played a role in that, so that was a little artificial, but it still sort of would have ended up being a 5 or 6 point drop. I bet just the way the game was starting to trend. But yeah, in the preseason, as I quickly glance at spreadsheets here, in the preseason, Mizzou was a 0.5 point favorite in this game. But you combine 3 games of overachievement for Missouri with basically 3 games of underachievement for South Carolina, and you land here. So again, like wounded underdog here for South Carolina, and they remain really dangerous. But there's no question. I said this about South Carolina Vandy last week. Vandy, there's no question who had been the better team to date heading into that game. Same thing. There's no question who's been the better team heading into Mizzou, South Carolina this year.
Does the expectation for Mizzou winning or things like that matter if Sellers plays or not? Because for those listening, that I assume most people listening know that he was out or he left the game last week. I assume he was under concussion protocol, even though they didn't clearly say that he had a concussion. I don't think anything's been out. I also believe that Shane Beamer has said that he expects him to play, but a Beamer is Beamer, just like drink is drink. Like you kind of never really know if what they're saying is the truth. But how much do you think that the game win probability for Mizzou changes if he does play?
Yeah, I mean, Sellers, dramatically inconsistent quarterback, but still far more explosive than Luke Doty. So like lean into what I was saying about the explosiveness and all that. Like they're far more dangerous with Sellers. So that is a pretty big thing. I realize with concussion protocol, you're ready when you're ready, and you can assume that somebody will get there by Saturday, which I'm betting Sellers does. But yeah, he still, and until he's ready, they won't be able to say he's ready, and everybody's super paranoid about saying anything or revealing anything now. But no, Sellers is much better than Luke Doty. Doty might be a little more like in terms of completion rate and whatnot. Maybe they can get a little quick passing game going with him. They tried last week and it didn't really work. But Sellers is infinitely more explosive, and therefore he's what South Carolina needs in the game.
The Missouri defense has been pretty good this season, and that's going to be a big thing is containing Sellers if he does play. I can't wait for that first SEC injury report to hit, and you get to see like Sellers will be doubtful all week, and then he'll start the game or something like that. I can't wait for them to do that gamesmanship. We know Eli Drinkwitz was trying to do that with their quarterback situation too, going into the Kansas game. But that Missouri defense was kind of heading into the season. That was the spot you're like, okay, you feel good about that side of the ball. There were a little bit more question marks on the offensive side of the ball. How do you see this Missouri defense defending a mobile quarterback like Sellers? They did have Jalen Daniels early on in the year, and they were kind of able to contain him fairly well. How do you see that defense translating from the Kansas game over to South Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, you figure I go back to, Mizzou kind of revealed its tendencies with the Castellanos Boston College game last year, where it really was like, yeah, they went after him here and there, but the goal was mainly to contain him and just force him to throw the ball. They did that pretty well with Jalen Daniels. Now, Daniel started finding some open receivers downfield, and Missouri did kind of luck out. There were a couple drops involved, a couple inaccurate passes involved. Sellers isn't incredibly accurate either, but they have receivers who can go deep, and he can get the ball very far down the field. And so you do kind of worry about that. It's just been kind of like Missouri's defense has been successful this year, but there have been kind of wafts of issues. Haven't been quite as many turnovers as Drinkwitz probably wants there to be. There have been open receivers downfield. Louisiana's one good play last week was an 80-yard touchdown. So, you could see like that kind of does make you vulnerable to a team like South Carolina, which isn't efficient at all, but has a lot of deep threats and big play threats. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how they try to contain not only Sellers, but Harbor and some of the big play wideouts. How aggressive do they think they can get? And because if you don't send enough guys, it's hard to contain a Sellers type if you only have one pass rusher who's creating any danger. You need, the whole contain thing requires multiple guys. So it'll be interesting to see how aggressive they get and how successful they are preventing those big plays.
It's crazy because I see kind of Jalen Daniels and Lenora Sellers as similar types of quarterbacks in the way that they, like to run the ball, the way that they scramble really well. But I almost think that Mizzou needs to go a little bit of a different route. The way that they contained Jalen Daniels was, forcing him to stay in the pocket and make those throws. I almost think that you need to blitz on somebody like Lenora Sellers and make him uncomfortable, because in the first couple of games that he played, I think he was like pressured, I don't know, 12 times or something, took 7 sacks. Like it hasn't been great. So that's kind of how I think that you need to handle it with him. In terms of other keys to winning the game, I think that Mizzou kind of needs to get up early, make them uncomfortable, because South Carolina's not good at those come behind wins. What are some of your keys to the game?
Yeah, I mean, Sellers in general, he'll make, well, I always go back to the Clemson game last year where he made these 2 amazing plays and got Heisman hype because of it. And also South Carolina scored 17 points because he trusts his athleticism a lot more than he should. He turns more pressures into sacks than just about anybody in the country. And again, it's just about those 2 big plays that he makes. So, I mean, yeah, you can make a case either way here, just in terms of, contain him versus basically live with 2 big plays but force a bunch of mistakes otherwise. Like there's certainly you can go down that road. There's decent logic there. As far as keys though, I do think one area where South Carolina I think has disappointed the most has been their offensive line is rebuilt like millions of other teams had rebuilt offensive lines this year. Hasn't been good. And they basically, when they hired Mike Shula, first I didn't like the hire. I thought it was kind of just a recycling job and not very creative. Started thinking about it more and realizing, like, walking back through Mike Shula's Cam Newton years with Carolina, where you can kind of look at those teams and see that, they were as physical as possible. They ran the ball a ton on 1st and 2nd down. And they basically said, hey, Cam, go make a play on 3rd down. And they made the Super Bowl doing it. So you can kind of see the logic of asking Sellers to basically let's create a really, really nice run game. And then we'll give you a chance to make plays on 3rd down. That's backfired because their run game is horrible. And those 3rd downs are 3rd and 11s. And that's one of the major reasons they haven't succeeded. So you could say that as much as I can talk about containing Harbor, containing Sellers and everything else, if you're stopping the run and forcing them into 3rd and longs, it has not worked out well for them at all this season. They're, I think, 120th in 3rd down conversion rate right now. Even though they're kind of creative, they're converting an above average number of like 3rd and super longs. Put them in 3rd and super long constantly, and you're going to win. So, you could make a case that if Missouri's defensive line is winning that matchup, it's going to eliminate South Carolina's options, and they're basically going to be praying for 380-yard gains if they're going to win, and might get them, but that's still a really, really hard path to go down and expect to win a big game on the road.
You got to feel good about where Missouri's defense is at, too. And Bill, we've went almost 15 minutes without really mentioning Missouri's offense and this offensive explosion that they've kind of had. And I think that's the most sexy and exciting part of this team right now when you talk about it. Even though it's Ahmad Hardy, it's running the football. Like, this team is getting it done on the ground. I mean, you just look at some of these numbers, just the raw numbers, like 587 yards per game is what they're averaging right now in the first 3 games, 7.1 yards per carry, 6.2 yards per rush. 7.1 yards per play, 6.2 yards per rush, and 9.1 yards per pass attempt. This offense has been, I think, a lot better than maybe even the most optimistic Mizzou fan would have thought. Bo Prabula is throwing the ball incredibly well. Ahmad Hardy's running the ball at a very high clip. What are your thoughts on this Missouri offense heading into this matchup?
Yeah, it's the same kind of deal with the Missouri defense in that we can't really say like this has been a problem so much as it's just kind of a waft of an issue. Like maybe this becomes an issue when the schedule picks up, and with Missouri, it has been funny. I was, it was easy to be very concerned about the offensive line. You look at the rushing stats, you look at the overall passing stats, everything looks fantastic. And we just have these, like one drive against Central Arkansas where everything kind of fell apart. Holes started showing up everywhere. And you just kind of assume it was a tactical glitch. They went to the sideline, they figured out what was going on, and then it wasn't a problem anymore. I know Power Mizzou did a nice story yesterday about blitzes from the slot and Louisiana having some success in that regard, which I hadn't even really thought about. Most of the pressure coming from that regard, and then they start to adjust. Pressure comes up the middle once, and that was same kind of an issue. It wasn't an issue the whole game, and since they couldn't be knocked off schedule because the run game was working so well, wasn't a problem at all. But we'll see. I mean, Dylan Stewart, I was concerned about South Carolina's defensive front, but I think it's better. Like a lot of new starters in those places, they've shown up pretty well. They're defending the run really well. They don't have a ton of sacks, but they've created a lot of pressure, and they've forced Drones and Pavia out of the pocket quite a bit. which can be good or bad because Pavia especially can make plays out of the pocket. And maybe Probula can too, but they're rushing the passer well. They're winning a lot of battles. They're giving up. One of the things I look at a lot when I'm doing stats for the Friday preview and whatnot is looking at success rate, which is one of my key efficiency measures. Where like how frequently are you getting 50 yards or 50% of your yardage on first down, 70% on second, 100% on third or fourth. Look at success rate, and then basically look at when you have a successful play, how successful is it? Yards per successful play. And I try to break things into efficiency and explosiveness. Right now, South Carolina's explosiveness on defense is great. They're 8th in yards allowed per successful rush, meaning even if you get a decent amount of yardage, you're getting 5 yards on first down, not 12. Yeah. And so they're containing run games pretty well. They're 19th in pressure rate. So they are getting pressure on guys, even if they're not necessarily recording sacks. And I think that's something to pay attention to. It feels like a really nice next step for Missouri here, in that they've looked great through 3 games, but the issues we don't know for sure if they have or not. South Carolina's going to tell us if those are issues or not.
What's good, everyone? It is KCSN betting analyst Benny Heiss. Something hit me as I was driving to the Missouri side, ironically, for something not available on the Kansas side. I cross over. I just can't get over how long sports fans in the state of Missouri have been waiting. It feels like forever. Good news is you don't have to wait much longer, because DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is finally coming to the Show Me State. And if you're thinking, yeah, but I got to wait on the sidelines until December 1st, it's not true. You can sign up right now. And when we go live, new Missouri customers get $300 in bonus bets just for placing a $5 bet. $5. That's not even as much as a pumpkin spice latte that's going to take over. So it's not some ragtag sports, but this is DraftKings. You got live in-game betting. So if your team starts hot, you could jump in mid-play. There's lightning fast payouts. None of that wait 3 days for your money nonsense. And you've got more ways to get in on the action. There's no better way to start. It's all from your phone. When we go live, you'll be betting with a sportsbook trusted by millions, safe, secure, fast withdrawals, everything you want. Well, except maybe a guarantee that your team will cover the spread, but that part's still on you. So here's the move. You download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use code KCSN, and when we go live December 1st, that $5 bet turns into $300 in bonus bets. That is code KCSN in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus and physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after they are issued. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos.
I'm Brett Goodwin, one of the owners of The Learning Tree. The Learning Tree is a neighborhood toy store in Prairie Village, Kansas. This has been here in this location since 2000s, and my husband Alan and I purchased the store in 2023. Alan and I grew up in families where we've always wanted to have a business together. Alan grew up, for instance, his parents had a jewelry store. I worked in a local toy store here in Prairie Village when I was growing up. When this opportunity happened in 2023, we knew right away we wanted to contact them and pursue the store. We wouldn't have been able to get the store without the team at Emprise Bank. From the day we contacted them, they knew what we needed to do, which was very helpful. I would absolutely recommend the team at Emprise Bank to anyone looking to secure a business. We worked with Emprise from day one. They were extremely helpful. They were always great resources. We talk to them frequently. They know the area. They're very friendly. We know who we're going to talk with, and they know what we need to do. We hope we'll see you at the Learning Tree.
So we talk a little bit about Ahmad Hardy, and obviously he's been the superstar of Mizzou, along with Kevin Coleman, Bo Probula. Are there any other players on Mizzou that you've seen that have really just shown bright for you that you weren't expecting to do maybe at the beginning of the season?
Well, I was really curious about, Trotter, I think, has been really nice on defense, and just in terms of getting into the backfield quite a bit. I wasn't sure how they were going to utilize the linebackers in that regard. He's made a lot of plays at or near the line of scrimmage, and I think that's been, for obvious reasons, that's been a really useful thing to see. So he's fit right in. Not that they had a lot of good linebackers or potentially good linebackers, so I wasn't really worried, but I was just curious about their usage and what we've seen from Trotter. They're being pretty aggressive with him. It's working out pretty well, and I don't really think that'll stop necessarily. He seems to be a really nice fit. And on offense, it was Marquise Johnson had such a strange first 2 years here, where first year he basically caught an unsustainably high number of deep balls.
Yeah.
And then last year his numbers were almost unsustainably low. And you're kind of wondering, like, where was that going to fall? He's been pretty reliable this year. Still, 9 of 14, I think, in terms of targets. So that's a really nice place when you're also still providing a really nice deep threat overall. So they've used him. I'm curious about Josh Manning. They haven't done a ton with him yet. They haven't had to yet, because Coleman's been reliable and Johnson's been good. But, how he fits in down the line here, I'm really curious, because he is kind of an untapped weapon so far this season. And at some point he'll probably be called upon.
Absolutely. Bill, appreciate your time. Just a couple more questions from me. I'm curious how you kind of quantify special teams in this game, too. Missouri does lose their kicker in the first game of the season, and we haven't really seen him run out there a whole lot. There was a couple of times where Missouri against Kansas was a little bit more aggressive because of the uncertainty in the special teams game. You really hope that this game doesn't come down to needing a freshman kicker to hit a 45, 46-yarder to win the game. But how do you kind of quantify that in terms of like this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously been a really big thing. Obviously, he hasn't had many opportunities. He missed a field goal last week, but that clearly impacted the Kansas game. We know, Eli Drinkwitz is not the most aggressive fourth down presence in the world, and he's got a cautious streak to him. He's happy to settle for 47-yard field goals because he knows he has that in the bag. When they didn't have that, they had to get more aggressive on fourth down, and it was great. It went very well for Missouri in that game. It was one of the keys to them coming back from those early bounces. So, this is the formula has been pretty straight these last couple of years. Missouri has won a ton of close games with, knowing how to pull off a good 4-minute drill and run the ball, and knowing that you've got a huge legged kicker who can nail a clutch 50-yarder. You don't have that right now, maybe, or at least you don't know if you have that right now. And that does change the calculus a little bit, and it could impact some close games down the line. So in this one, if everything plays out according to projections, it'll be a 2-touchdown win. You won't have to come down to that last field goal. But yeah, Missouri has no idea what they have there, and that could end up making a difference. Also, Swain really is just about the best punt returner in the country, and that could impact the way Missouri. Not that we don't know how many times they'll be punting, but that is a field position factor, just because you do not want to kick to him right now, even if it means shorter kicks out of bounds. So we'll see how they go about that too.
Yeah, Mizzou's definitely going to have to prep themselves for some Beamer ball in that one, because Swain's been awesome. Mm-hmm. My last question for you, it's not really game related, but has to do with the overall part of the season. We're 4 games in, whatever we are right now. Yeah. And there's two openings right now at Power 4. There's UCLA, there's Virginia Tech. I'm expecting about 2 to 3 more openings, at least just in the SEC alone, by the time we get to the end of the season. Where do you see Drink at the end of the season? Is there a reason for Drink to go anywhere else? In my personal opinion, I think he kind of has it made. Like, he's the king of Como right now. Like, he's getting paid a lot of money. He's doing what he wants. He's building what he wants. Like, he's running that town. Is Florida really... Sorry, I dropped a name. I dropped Florida. If Florida opens, is that really even, like, that big of an upgrade of a job right now over Missouri?
Well, I mean, obviously he knows what he has, and so far, every time he's asked for more of an investment from Missouri has provided it. And so, that alone, you're clearing a certain bar in that regard. I mean, at schools where you've won national titles, though, like, until Missouri's done that, they haven't done that. And so that's always going to be a pull. A job like Florida, obviously, Drinkwitz has been in the SEC long enough, and he's certainly noticed that Florida hasn't won very much at all in the last 10, 12 years, really. But if they can offer like a more of a financial incentive for him to come, be it salary or assistant salary or whatever, it's going to be on the table. I don't think he's going to be the top name on Florida's list. So, they, being in the kind of scorned position that they're in, they're going to aim for, foolishly or smartly, they're going to aim for a bigger name or whatever. And, some of the names we've seen floated around make a lot of sense in that regard. But if they get down to 3 or 4, they get a little desperate. They start to maybe decide they need to throw a whole heck of a lot of money at somebody more in the Drinkwitz category. I mean, you can't guarantee that he's going to turn that down. I think all you can trust is that Missouri has been good the last 2 years and is going to be better than Florida this year, most likely moving forward, especially better record with Florida's schedule.
Right.
And if you succeed, if you win a lot of games this season and a year after you were supposed to fall off, then that's all very good. And it puts Missouri in the best possible situation, but it's not 0%. I mean, that's the way the game works. So I would assume, to answer your original question, I assume the odds are still very much in favor of him being Missouri's coach at the end of the year. It's just not, 100%.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to know that your girlfriend's pretty. Sometimes you gotta be able to be told that your girlfriend's still pretty. Bill, appreciate you hanging out with us. Last one I got for you. What's been the one thing in college football that's kind of been catching your eye this year? Whether it's a team, a player, anything like that that's really caught your eye, and you're like, I wanted to talk about this every time I go on a podcast, every time I do a hit, I want to talk about this. What's that thing been?
Well, after week 1, it was funny that in all the big games there were no points. Everybody was in a too high shell. Everybody was dicking and dunking and not, taking long drives to not score. And that was not really that was especially NFL like experience that I do not watch college football for. I like points. And then this last week, that kind of ruined all of that by just, deep shot after deep shot in big games. So we've had 2 very, very different sets of big games this year. And I don't really know where things head from there. But honestly, the most interesting storyline so far is how wide open things feel, primarily because every quarterback who is supposed to be good this season isn't. Not every, but Arch Manning has not been good. Garrett Nussmeier hasn't been good. DJ Lagway looks like he didn't practice all offseason because he didn't practice all offseason. Just so many offenses. Cade Klubnik was supposed to be kind of the bird in hand, with Clemson being the proven entity, and he's gotten worse. And so that has opened up a lot of possibilities here. And suddenly Missouri is feeling like they have a better chance than they did when the season started. Illinois, Indiana is enormous this week because who knows who's exactly good. Drew Aller hasn't looked all that impressive either. What does that mean for the Big Ten's hierarchy? And, we like when the sport feels wide open, especially if you're not a fan of one of the original Blue Bloods. Yeah. And with so many Blue Bloods still having major question marks heading into week 4, it's a pretty fun environment.
I was watching that Power Mizzou did an interview, and they were talking about how people are always like, oh, it's so much better when the Yankees and the Red Sox are good. Like, that's when ball is good. And I'm like, no, ball is good when it's like 2007. Like, and maybe that's a selfish thing for me because Mizzou was very good in 2007. But I like watching those underdog types of teams. I like it when West Virginia is competing, which obviously they're not really that good this year. But I think it's more fun when Vandy is good. I think it's more fun when Oklahoma State is good. Like, that makes college football fun for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's for as this sport is always going to kind of revert to its power balance. But the blip years, I always think the blip years are the most important that the sport has. We need to know that it's possible for South, speaking of 07, for South Florida to suddenly be number 2 in the country. For Missouri, Kansas to be a game with national title implications, and West Virginia, Pitt, all those things that happened that year, you're not going to get those every year. And if you got them every year, then suddenly nobody would know who's good, and maybe the sport would suffer for it. But knowing that the sport is capable of those blips, I think, is important. And the more separation we get in terms of money, the less possible those years become. And that's one of the things that kind of concerns me a little bit. But no, this year, the portal and the way the roster management has changed, I think, has really, really impacted a lot of things, at least in terms of, how many programs can think of themselves as national title caliber. And right now, that's a really good thing.
It's really interesting to watch. Bill, appreciate you hopping on with us and previewing this Missouri-South Carolina, talking some college ball. You can go find his work on X at ESPN_Bill C and at ESPN.com as well. Bill, appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
All right, that's going to do it for the Mizzou That's Who podcast. For Maggie Johnson, I'm Tucker Franklin and Bill Connelly. We will talk to you guys, hopefully, after a Missouri Tigers victory. We'll talk to you then.